All right. I promise a very short presentation, but I did want to start off by talking as little as possible about myself. I'm originally from Fort Wayne, so I spent some time in Allen County, 4 years in Tippecanoe before moving down to Marion. I've been with state government since 2006. I got my start with the Indiana Department of Transportation before coming to the auditor's office in 2009. Since that time, I've worked in the accounting department, and just about a month and a half ago, I transitioned into the assistant settlement director's position, which is an intimidating role, but I'm very thankful to have the time to spend with Dan to try to learn from the person who's been doing it for, how long has it been, Dan?
89.
Since 1989, which was about... Wait, I'm gonna lose my hair?
They're rough on you,
Okay, I have got, like I said, a very short presentation, and really what it's focused on, the presentation is focused on time, of all things, and a little bit on Dan. Now, we know that Dan is leaving, and it is the auditor's office expressed goal to make sure that the counties can still expect the same level of service that you grown accustomed to, which includes meeting deadlines for distributions from our office, the same resource in terms of answering questions, the being able to find and cite the code that leads to all the decisions that we're making. Now, in order to do that, without Dan here, we're going to need just a little bit of help. What we've been doing is reviewing places, especially in our daily responsibilities, where we think we can save a little bit of time. And I've boiled those 2 points down to the 2 points I'll be covering today. Now, the first one we have labeled as automation. Now, I found a presentation from 2011 where the auditor's office debuted that we'd begin to accept payments electronically as compared to the paper checks that we receive on a daily basis. 3 years later, we are looking at less than a 20% acceptance rate. We still get a lot of paper checks in the mail. What we'd like to do is to turn this graph around, and by the time we speak again in the fall, it's an 80% that are remitting electronically where possible as compared to the 20% that we're seeing now. Now, from our end, well, I should say, I do realize that saving time is kind of a misnomer. Every hour you spend saving time in one area is just another hour that you can spend working on something else that would take us longer to get through. But from our end, it takes about 50% longer for us to process paper checks the way that before we can deposit them at the treasurer's office as compared to the electronic versions. Now, if you think about the number of payments that you're sending to the state's office and then multiply it by 92, you get an idea of what sort of volume we're looking at on a daily basis down at the auditor's office. Which I don't say to make you feel sorry for. It's just trying to sell you on the idea that there's a significant amount of time savings that we can realize if it makes sense to switch you to an electronic payment method. Now, on your end, if you consider how much time it takes to prepare those packets that come to the auditor's office, to mail those packets, to order new checks, we're hoping that there would be a savings on your end of a pure cost savings on your end that makes this make sense for you guys. Now, we're not talking about millions of dollars, but it wouldn't be absurd to think that we couldn't save thousands. Now, along those lines, in this new era of government, where we are being required to do more and more with less and less in terms of both manpower and money, I'm hoping that that would be a pretty good selling point of anywhere that we can save money without having to drastically change our process is something we should definitely take a look at. Now, the next slide is just a couple examples of the remittances that are currently available for ACH, the fines and fees, the fines and forfeitures, the judge's salary, whether that's done on an annual basis or on a quarterly, we can accept those electronically. Now, nothing is ever as easy as it seems. There are a few hoops that you'll have to jump through, a couple of emails that we'll have to exchange that explain the requirements. There's a form that the auditor's office has developed that makes sure that we have the information we need from your financial institution to make this happen. Some financial institutions have their own forms, and so it would just be a matter of getting one of those filled out and on file with the auditor's office just to make sure that everything will be working. But after that, But as soon as those forms are filled out, as soon as we have those very short discussions, we should be able to start the practice of remitting electronically. So my first challenge for you, my first request, would be to evaluate what you're currently doing in terms of sending money in. The auditor's office will always accept paper checks. Those cash just as well as the electronic ones. But if we can get the money faster, if we can save some money and some time doing it, why don't we take advantage of this new procedure? And in the fall, we'll get back together and find out how we've done as a state. Now, the second area is a little bit easier. Now, in terms of what gets remitted to the state, we're pretty much a broken record. You know, and I am learning what needs to be submitted, what our time frames are, the sort of the monies that get submitted in on the timetable that they are submitted to the auditor's office. The request we have for this one deals with uniformity. By this time, I imagine you've seen 5 or 6 or 7 different versions of the same form. All of it say fines and fees at the top, and each one is a little bit different as you look through it. Now, each year, the auditor's office reviews the forms that we send out. We add, we subtract. We try to make the form more readable, easier for us to put the information into the system that we need. We've added shortcuts on our end. We've added speed codes, anything to try to make the process easier. But the forms do end up looking very similar. The request for this second area is to make sure that you're using the most up-to-date forms. The form that was sent out last year or posted on the FTP site may be comparable to last year's form or may be comparable to this year's form, but it's the subtle differences that both cause time, headache, and heartache. Heartache? On our end. The more time we spend researching or trying to correct it, it's just time it takes away from the other responsibilities that we have. But I brought an example of that. This is the 2011 fines and fees spreadsheet. And right next to it, we have the 2014. Now, we can see on the 14 form that the auditor's office has built the codes that we would need to actually enter the deposit into our system right there in the middle. But that's not the only difference between these two forms. Did anyone spot the big difference? So separate from the formatting and separate from the headers, there's a pretty significant difference between the two forms. Yeah, I apologize. It is a little bit small to see on the presentation itself, but there are only 12 rows on the 2011 form, and there are 13 on the 2014 form. We added, I can make this out, the violent crime victims compensation payroll at the bottom of the spreadsheet. Now, if the old form was filled out, there's a chance that your county wouldn't be remitting money for that area. But if you tried to use the old form and your county did, you wouldn't have a place to put it. Or worse, you would have an opportunity to put it into the homestead property instead of the violent crime, which end of the world it would not be, but it's just another thing that would drain time from the auditor's office. Okay. So the second challenge is review the forms that you're currently using before you send them to the auditor's office. If you have any questions of whether or not you have the most up-to-date forms, please let us know. Let us know. Okay. And that is about it. I promised a very short presentation, and I'm hoping I met that goal. I will be around today and tomorrow. I look forward to meeting as many of you as I can today and working with all of you come tomorrow. I believe that we are scheduled for a break at this point, so please